Hello, racers and race fans. My name is John, and I'm your host for the Maritime Pro Stock Tour's Hot Pass podcast. Here we are, episode 9 of this thing already, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Of course, we're going to start by recapping all of the action of the Nova Truck Center's 150 from Saturday, June 22nd at Scotia Speed World. And then we've got a couple of very special guests as we prepare to roll into the NASCAR Canada weekend at Riverside this weekend. Who better to talk to than Danny Chisholm, who's going to be piloting the 19 Janny King car as part of the NASCAR Canada races at Riverside, and a guy that can really tell us what the difference is between these cars and the Pro Stocks that we run. He's done both. He's got a handful of races under his belt now on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. So we'll talk to Danny and bridge the gap between the Maritime Pro Stock Tour and the NASCAR Canada Series. We will also get to spend some time with Joe Chisholm Jr. Joe is the spotter for Andrew Ranger, the number 27 of the NASCAR Canada Series. Of course, he has a connection to Racetime Radio. His father, Joe Chisholm Sr., of course, is the man, the myth, and the legend behind that. So we'll talk to Joe about his upcoming experience at Riverside, how the season's going so far with the number 27 of Andrew Ranger, and sneak preview, I can tell you it's going very well for them so far. Andrew's just won back-to-back races on the NASCAR Canada Series, including the last one at Eastbound in Newfoundland. So we'll talk to Joe Chisholm about all of that as well. So a blend of an episode today between the Maritime Pro Stock Tour and the NASCAR Canada Series as we head into a triple header and then some at Riverside this weekend. And the Heart of a Champion Hot Rod Classics will be there, not to mention the Canada Day fireworks and live concerts. So one heck of a weekend in store for us at Riverside International Speedway coming right up this weekend. Now, let's turn our attention to the action on track last weekend, the Nova Truck Center's 150 in support of Special Olympics Nova Scotia at Scotia Speed World. We had been off for a couple of weeks. We didn't expect to be off on June 8th at Petty, but the rain didn't cooperate with us. And then last weekend was a scheduled weekend off, so we were back at it after 2 weeks off. Nicholas Naugle won the race, and we'll have a lot to talk about there because it was not easy for him, but he got it done, is the least we can say. Second place went to Jarrett Butcher after winning the first 2 races of the year. Jarrett came home in second place after what was really an eventful race for him. Had to pit 3 times to make changes, but was able to make his way back through the field all the way up to second in the end. And a third place, a first podium for the 25G team and Gage Gilby from Enfield. What can you say? I mean, he's had a great start to his very first season on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. That was his third ever start in a Pro Stock. And his style is becoming clear. Stay out of trouble, be smooth, and that's his way of being competitive. I think he runs his own race, and I think he makes moves when he can. He's not overly aggressive, but when the doors open, he takes those moves and he defends well. So well done for Gage Gilby. I mean, after all this is all said and done, this now puts him second in points after collecting a 7th place finish, a 5th place finish, and now a 3rd place finish. So second in points now for the 25G of Gage Gilby from Enfield. So your complete results for all 15 starters, as I mentioned, Nicholas Naugle 1, Jarrett Butcher 2nd, 25G of Gage Gilby 3rd, 11V of Jordan Vino collecting a 4th place finish after a 3rd place finish in the Kenny Upel 150. So things really coming together for the 11V. I think really figuring some things out with the help of King Competition. They were working hard in the garage between practice and qualifying, but a solid result for Jordan this past weekend. The 13 of Austin McDonald came in 5th, showed a lot of speed throughout the day, came from way back in his heat race about mid-pack to win the thing. So Austin showed a lot of speed right out of the box. Nova Racing, the 89 of Danny Chisholm comes home in 6th. We've talked to Danny before the race. You'll get to hear his comments in a few minutes, but just Danny showed a lot of speed all day. Fast in practice, fast in qualifying, won his heat race by a mile. And he was fast in the race too in the beginning, I would say for the first half of the race. And then the car just started falling off. The tires didn't stay. And I think there was an air pressure issue also at some point that contributed to probably not the finish he wanted, but really fast right out of the box. It just didn't stay for him. The 51 of Marc Leclerc comes home 7th. Marc unfortunately got involved in that incident between the 29 of Greg Proud spinning the 08 of Nick Naugle on lap 64. I think Marc just didn't see it in time. He was coming through and just clipped the front of the 08. A little bit of a race of attrition, as you'll see. A lot of cars did not finish that race for various reasons, and we'll get to that. The 0 of Sam Rogers came home in 8th place, ran all the laps, kept his nose clean. Gary Elliott came home 9th in the 36 car, ran all the laps as well. Stephen Lively, last car on the lead lap, in 10th place. The 41 of Mike Rogers came home in 11th after experiencing some issues with the car and having to retire it. Same goes with Russell Smith Jr., 12th, only completed 125 laps. The issues just forced a retirement there. Just the same went for Mike Rogers, as I've just mentioned. So 12th place for Russell Smith Jr., 13th for Greg Proud. Obviously got involved in that incident, spinning Nick Naugle on lap 64. The car just wasn't the same after that. It sounded like it wasn't firing on all cylinders, to be honest. And Greg had to pull it in the pits after 85 laps and leave it there. Tyler Haas came home in 14th. Another competitor who did not finish, only completed 72 laps. And a disappointing day for Ryan Van Oerscott and the 25 team from Antigonish, only being able to turn 22 laps. Basically, my understanding from reviewing some information that Ryan shared is that he had a wheel bearing basically explode in the car, and so wasn't able to go any further than 22 laps. So, that's 5 cars not turning all 150 laps. So definitely a bit of a race of attrition there this past weekend. Let's start with our winner, Nicholas Naugle, the 08 Bricon construction car from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Spoke to Nick between practice and qualifying, and they weren't really happy with the car out of the box. Had to throw a lot of changes at it, but as you'll hear, it started coming around, and he had a little bit more confidence in the car, but definitely not, let's say, beaming with confidence in that thing. They had to make a lot of changes, and here's what he had to say about it before the heat race.
So we're starting our grid walk today with 08 Nick Naugle, my first guest. How's it going today, Nick?
Pretty good. We've been fighting with this car a bit in practice, but I think we're starting to head in the right direction.
Okay, good to know. Listen, you won this race last year. As we've talked about in the past, a little bit of bad luck at Petty for everybody with the rain. But of course, Scotia, got caught up in that wreck. 660 didn't go the way you wanted with the spring. So what adjustments have you made to the car today to keep this thing up front?
Yeah, this is the same car we had here last time. It took a bit to get it back to where it's at. A few practice sessions chasing little gremlins in the car, but I'm pretty happy with it now. I think it's where it needs to be, and hopefully it's not another race of attrition. A little good luck come our way, and I think it'll go a long way.
Did you have to make big changes after practice today, saying you struggled a bit?
Yeah, we've thrown the kitchen sink at it since we've been here this morning, but nearing the end we were able to just start dialing it in a little more, and I'm pretty happy with that.
All right, sounds good, Nick. Best of luck today.
Thank you very much.
Now, as I kept making my way through the garage before the heat races, I also ran into the 11V of Jordan Vino, spoke to Jordan, and I didn't get a sense that there was a whole lot of confidence there either. Had to make a lot of changes to the car between practice and qualifying. Wasn't really happy with it. I mean, that team definitely turned things around, and they were able to secure a 4th place finish. But as you'll hear, not a ton of confidence there before going into his heat race.
Here we are continuing our track walk. We just spoke with Nick Naugle. He's been struggling with the car in practice. Seems like it might be a little bit of the same for the 11V of Jordan Vino.
Yeah, we're just chasing a bunch of stuff. Not quite as good as it was here last time. Hopefully we get it sorted out. We just threw a bunch of big changes at it. We'll see how it is in the heat race. We didn't have a very good draw, so we're starting scratch on the field.
Well, lots of opportunity to sort of make your way up front and learn how this car is going to handle. What kind of changes did you throw at this thing from practice till now?
We changed a spring bump package, or spring on one front spring and a bump package on the other one, and the wheel loads, and made a bit of a stagger adjustment too. Couple big changes.
Okay. Well, I think the confidence is there, at least mentally. You know you can do well here. Third place last time. We'll just hope for a bit of luck today and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Now, after the heat races were over, I spoke to Austin McDonald, the man who probably put together the most impressive heat race performance of the day, coming from fourth in his heat race to take the win, passing 3 cars to do that. Now, remember, he only got 10 laps, so he really got on it. The car was really fast. Here's what Austin had to say about it.
Continuing our grid walk, or I should say our pit walk on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. Nova Truck Center 150, Austin McDonald, nothing like starting from the back and getting to the front.
Yeah, it was car was good. A little bit of free in, but I think we're going to work that out right now. Car felt really good on the top side, which I'm really happy with. I mean, not usually you get to run the top a lot, so I was definitely happy to be up there and feeling good.
Are you going to have to throw some changes at it now before the feature?
Yeah, I think we'll change a couple of things. I don't know how much. Car is pretty stable. It doesn't have some of that raw speed that some of these other guys do, but I'm really happy with the drivability in it. So we're going to make a couple small changes right now and try our best.
All right, best of luck to you, Austin. Hopefully see you on the podium tonight.
Thank you.
And speaking of guys who were fast, I then made my way down to sort of the other end of the pits where you found the 88 and the 89, the Nova Racing teammates. And I spoke to Danny Chisholm, who really was fast all day. Fast in practice, fast in his heat race, dominated, started first, stayed first, won his heat race by a mile. As we know, he would ultimately end up finishing 6th. I mean, he had a lot of speed early on, but the car really faded about halfway through the race, and he just wasn't able to keep his pace. I think the tires went. Maybe a tire pressure issue, I think I've heard him say as well. So not the result they wanted, but they were about to have a very strong start to their day, and here's how Danny felt before he got into his car.
So we're continuing our pit walk on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour, Nova Truck Center 150. Just came across one Danny Chisholm, who's going to be piloting the 89 today, Celtic Ford Pro Stock. How's it going today, Danny?
We're doing pretty well. The car's been really fast in practice. We were second quick in the first 2 and top of the board in the last one. So I think we got a good piece. We're starting pole of our heat race too. So we got lots going for us. Just got to keep her all in one piece and make sure we have a good car for the long run.
Did you have to throw a lot of changes at it between practice and now, or are you happy with it?
No, we haven't made many changes all day. We've kind of just fine-tuning stuff, making a few here and there. We kind of know what we're doing going into the race, so we come with a pretty good setup right out of the trailer. George and Butch and everybody working hard on this car, getting it right, and we should be good to go.
All right, what's the key going to be to keeping this thing up front for 150 laps later on tonight?
Keeping tires on it. We'll try to keep the pace backed up. If I can start up front, I think that'll help us a lot. We'll keep the pace kind of back down a little bit, hopefully, and kind of manage the race as we go. Because if you got to come from the back, which a lot of these guys are going to have to do, you got to use up a lot of your stuff. So if we can keep tires on it, we'll have something for them when 150 comes around.
All right, Danny, listen, thanks for your time today, and look forward to a longer conversation with you this coming Wednesday, where you and I are going to get the chance to flesh it out a little bit more as we're coming up on the big weekend at Riverside with NASCAR Canada.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be talking and I'll be a winner.
All right, sir. Maybe see you on the podium. Maybe even see you with the big trophy at the end of tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Danny.
All right, perfect.
Now, after the heat racing wrapped up, I also wanted to catch up with the zero of Sam Rogers. I mean, Sam, one of our rookies this year, was about to take his 3rd ever start on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. I wanted to catch up with him and see if the nerves were starting to come down, if he was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in that environment. So here's what Sam had to say after his heat, which, by the way, he started 3rd and held it down, also finished 3rd. So a good heat race for the youngster. Here's what he had to say.
So we're continuing our pit walk here. Sam Rogers, number 0 car. Listen, started 3rd in your heat and you held it down. How's the car feel?
Yeah, we've been working on the car pretty hard today, making gains, finding some speed. Felt pretty stable in the heat race. I think we'll be all right.
So having said that, you started 3rd, held it down. Some fast guys out there. Austin McDonald, seriously fast. What do you got for these guys in the feature tonight?
Oh, we're just going to try to run our own race. Just try to save our stuff a bit and don't overdrive the car. The heat race was a good test. We tried a few other things just to see how they played out. So hopefully what we got now will be all right.
Now, this is going to be your third start on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. Are the nerves starting to get a little better? Is it a little easier to come to the track now and not just be a pack of nerves?
Oh, I mean, I feel like for everyone, a lot of the times the nerves are always there. And I feel like sometimes when you do get nervous, it's because you want to do well, you want to perform well. But no, I feel like I've settled in pretty good. I'm getting more and more comfortable in the car each time out, and it's been a lot of fun so far. So try to get another good finish today.
Best of luck to you. This is the Zero of Sam Rogers. We'll see you hopefully, hey, who knows, hoping for a good finish tonight. Bring her home in one piece and have fun, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And last but not least, I also got the chance to speak to the 25 of Ryan Van Arscott after the heat race. Felt like he left a little bit on the table, but here's what he had to say.
Continuing our pit walk with the number 25 of Ryan Van Arscott. Listen, started first in your heat race, finished second. Not a bad starting spot for the feature tonight.
No, not at all. I think we have a good long run car. Left a little on the track there in the heat race. I think we'll be better in the long run for it though.
Do you think you need to make a lot of changes to it for the feature tonight, or do you like it as it is?
No, I'm very, very happy. I can hug the bottom of the track all day long. Seems like everyone else is fighting for the top. I'll try my luck with that.
What about from practice to the heat race? Did you make a lot of changes there, or how did it feel right out of the box?
Yeah, we struggled right out of the box, and it was junk tires. Kind of wasted our first practice with those. Got our new tires on and everything right back where we should be. Put us where we expected to be in the field. I think we're right around 5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere around there. We stayed there the whole day. We made a little bit of an adjustment for the heat race. I think it worked. Starts off a tick free, but this race usually builds tight. So.
Yeah, hard to evaluate over 10 laps when the feature is going to run 150. But listen, you're going to have a good starting spot tonight. Best of luck to you, and keep the 25 up front.
Yes, sir. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
So to recap your heat racing action, in the first group you had the 25 of Ryan Van Arscott on pole. He ultimately finished second. Felt like he left a little bit on the table, but good effort nonetheless, because that gave him a very decent starting position in the feature. After him you had the 51 of Marc Leclerc, who ultimately came home in 5th in that heat race. Sam Rogers started 3rd, finished 3rd. The 13 of Austin McDonald rocketed from 4th to 1st. The 30 of Stephen Lively came home in 4th. After that, on the starting grid, you had the 33 of Tyler Haas came home 7th, the 11 of Jordan Vino 6th, and the 36 of Gary Elliott started and finished 8th. The second heat race had the rocket of Danny Chisholm starting 1st and finishing 1st. The 25G of Gage Gilby started 2nd and held that down. After that, it was the 88 of Russell Smith Jr. starting in 3rd but finishing in 6th. The 29, the Screaming Demon of Greg Proud, starting in 4th place, coming home in 3rd. After that, you had the 54 of Jarrett Butcher. A sign of things to come. Starting 5th, finishing 5th, really not able to make a lot of headway, really struggling with the handling of that car all day. Then you had the 08 of Nicholas Naugle, started 6th but came home in 4th, so he picked up a couple spots. And then the 41 started 7th, and Mike Rogers finished 7th in his heat race. So after all was said and done in the heat races, here's what your starting grid looked like. On the front row, you had Austin McDonald and Ryan Van Arscott. On the second row, you had the 0 of Sam Rogers next to the 30 of Stephen Lively. The third row was the 51 of Marc Leclerc and the 89 of Danny Chisholm. The fourth row was 25G Gage Gilby and 29 Greg Proud, followed by the 08 of Nicholas Naugle and the 88 of Russell Smith Jr., followed by the 54 of Jarrett Butcher and the 11th V of Jordan Vino. Second to last row was the 41 of Mike Rogers and the 33 of Tyler Haas, followed by the 36 of Gary Elliott. So from the drop of the green flag, the 13 of Austin McDonald started pulling away a little bit after clearing the 25 of Ryan Van Arscott. Opening up a car length or two right away. The thing was fast, and Danny Chisholm in the 89 was third by lap 5. He was second by lap 10. Just drove the wheels off the thing. It was very fast, but Unfortunately, ultimately, that's exactly what he ended up doing. He actually drove the wheels off the thing, and it didn't stay. He ended up finishing in 6th place, but so much speed early on. A lot of promise for this young man. He can drive a race car, and he's fast. The 29 of Greg Proud was 3rd by lap 13, and first sign of problems for the 25 of Ryan Van Oerscott by lap 18 when he was really off the pace. Car spun. The 89 took the lead by lap 21. The 29 of Greg Proud followed him to take 2nd place at that point. And then the 25, Ryan Van Oerscott, just had to pit. Lap 25, I suspected a tire was going down. It turns out a wheel bearing flat out exploded on him. And so that was the end of the day for the 25 of Ryan Van Oerscott on lap 25. By lap 26, your top 5 was the 89 of Danny Chisholm, next to the 29 of Greg Proud, followed by the 13 of Austin McDonald and the 88 of Russell Smith Jr. That's important to highlight. Russell Smith Jr., spoke to him at Petty in the rain delay, wasn't happy with his season so far, wasn't happy with the shock package. After switching to the QA1s, it definitely did make a difference because Russie was competitive. He was in the lead pack last weekend for a lot of the race. Unfortunately, issues ended his day, but you did notice a difference there. We're starting to see the performance levels that we're used to seeing out of the 88 Nova Racing team, so it was great to see him up front. Next to him was the 20, or behind him on the 3rd row was the 25G of Gage Gilby and the 08 of Nick Naugle. At that point, you got a sense that the 29 of Greg Proud knew he had a lot of speed and was just happy to sort of bide his time and follow the 89 of Danny Chisholm, not to burn up his stuff too much, but that only lasted until about lap 40 when the 29 of Greg Proud took the lead from Danny Chisholm. On the very next lap, we got a yellow flag as the 33 of Tyler Haas spun the car. On the restart on lap 41, you had Greg Proud next to Danny Chisholm. Behind them was Austin McDonald and Nicholas Naugle, and behind them was Russell Smith Jr. and Gage Gilby. The 08 of Nicholas Naugle took 3rd on that restart, and by lap 56, he was in 2nd place. As I was looking around the field, where was the 54 of Jared Butcher? Here we were on lap 56, and he was really sort of nowhere to be found. Really struggling with that car all day long. Had to make 3 pit stops on the day to sort of figure it out and make some changes. I don't think it ever came together for him, but he was able to wheel that thing to the front eventually. But lap 64 was when you started wondering what was going on with the 54 of Jared Butcher. It just didn't seem hooked up at all. Nice mid-pack battle by that point between the 13 of Austin McDonald, the 88 of Russell Smith Jr., the 25G, Gage Gilby, Mike Rogers in the 41 was in the mix, and so was Jordan Vino in the 11V. That thing was starting to come around fast. Another caution on lap 73 as Tyler Haas spun again. And that's when Nicholas Naugle took the lead on lap 77. So by lap 80, your running order was the 08 of Nick Naugle, next to the 29 of Greg Proud. Behind them were the 88 and the 41. Behind them were the 25G and the 89, followed by the 11V. And that's when you could really notice that the 89 of Danny Chisholm was really starting to fade. I mean, by that point, he was 5th in the restarting order, or 6th, I'm sorry. And he was just clearly losing a lot of pace. And then lap 84, caution flag is brought out as the 29 of Greg Proud spins the 08 of Nicholas Naugle. Now, if that's all that happened, Nick probably would have been fine having to just turn his car around and keep going. But the 51 of Marc Leclerc was coming through, and I don't think he saw the spin in front of him and just clipped the nose right off of the 08 on his way by. It did not end the day for the 08 of Nick Naugle. Obviously, was able to pit and make some repairs. So as we got ready to restart after that, the 88 and the 41 were on the front row, followed by the 25G and the 11, and then the 13 and the 51. So round of pit stops for some guys, including the 54 of Jared Butcher and the 89 of Danny Chisholm. And we almost got a crash in the pits right there as the 89 was released in the path of the 54 that was coming through. Luckily, a disaster was avoided. They did not make contact, but it was close. By lap 86, the 29 of Greg Proud has to pit. The car sounds like it's down on power. Now that's, after the contact with Nick Naugle. So I don't know if the thing, was not running on all cylinders by that point. Was that a result of the contact? I don't know, but that was the end of the day for the 29 of Greg Proud. By lap 95, Russell Smith Jr. was opening up a little bit of a gap on the field. It was great to see him up front. Like I said, disappointing start to the year, but really picking up in the speed department now. By lap 104, the 25G of Gage Gilby was looking really racy, battling for P2 with the 41 of Mike Rogers. Another caution on lap 105 would slow things down and make things interesting for the end of the race. There would be another caution after that on lap 126, but on lap 105, the 11V spun, got tagged by the 13 of Austin McDonald. No ill intent there. I think just a racing deal. As people were checking up. And so your restarting order on lap 109 was the 41 and the 88 on the front row, followed by the 08 and the 25G. And the 54 was starting to lurk in the background, making his presence known as he was making his way to the front. So Jarrett Butcher starting to pick up the pace. By lap 114, Nicholas Naugle was second. By lap 119, Nicholas Naugle was first. And by lap 123, Hello Gage Gilby was in second place, and Jarrett Butcher was following him, made his way to third place. To make things interesting, we got a caution on lap 126, an issue for the 41 of Mike Rogers after briefly stopping at the bottom of turn 1. Had to make his way to the pits and basically park the car. That was the end of the day for him on lap 148 is when the end of the day for him came. And then on lap 125, heartbreak for the 88 Nova Racing team of Russell Smith Jr. has to pit for an issue, and he wouldn't come back. Such a shame after finally showing the speed he wanted to show that he wasn't able to show in the first two races. That would end his day. So on that restart, you had Nick Naugle and Gage Gilby on the front row. Just think about what was going through the 25G's mind here. In his third ever Pro Stock Tour race, he's sitting on the front row next to Nicholas Naugle, about to restart 25 laps to the end. So the first row on that restart was the 08 and the 25G, followed by the 54 and the 13, followed by the 89 of Danny Chisholm and the 11V of Jordan Vino. So really a race of attrition to that point. I mean, now we were down to, 5 almost. Well, Mike Rogers, I guess, hadn't officially retired yet, but we were basically down to 5 out of 15 cars. That's a, significant portion of the field, a third of the field down by that point. And your top 5 would end up being Nicholas Naugle, who, led the most laps in the end. Certainly wasn't easy, but he did. So he gets the contingency award for leading the most laps. Jarrett Butcher finishes second, Gage Gilby third, Jordan Vino fourth, and Austin McDonald fifth. Danny Chisholm sixth, Mark Leclerc 7, Sam Rogers 8th, Gary Elliott 9th, and Stephen Lively, last car on the lead lap, 10th place. And we know that Jarrett Butcher and the 54 team struggled all day with a car that just wasn't coming around for them. Here's what Jarrett had to say after a little bit of champagne on the podium.
Now we've got him. Here we are, Maritime Pro Stock Tour Hot Pass Podcast. Second place today. Jarrett, how was it?
It wasn't great, to be honest with you. My crew, they're a great crew, and they stick with me even probably when they shouldn't. We struggled all day with the setup. We struggled in the race, had a bolt come loose in the rear end, and it was screwing our whole race. So for them to come in and get that fixed and us to drive back to the front, that just shows what kind of team we are, and hopefully we can keep this momentum going.
Absolutely. Watching you today, at times it really looked like a struggle inside that car to wheel that thing. How did you get it better after so many pit stops? What was the key to getting it back on track, or did it ever get back on track?
The crew just the crew just had to work hard, and they stayed with me, and I had to work with them. We just got on the outside and just ran the rail. So congrats to Nicholas. He did a great job. Congrats to Gage. He's young and he's learning, and he's learning pretty quick. So congrats to that team out there. I try to help them, and they helped me quite a bit.
First and second to start the year. Congrats, Jarrett.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Now, I did catch up with our race winner, Nicholas Naugle, and with our third place finisher, Gage Gilby, after the race, but unfortunately the audio didn't cooperate. Comments in a nutshell from Nicholas Naugle were that obviously a tough day for him after getting spun and the front end basically taken off of it on lap 64, but very thankful that his crew was able to make the necessary repairs and keep him calm, cool, and collected for the remainder of the run. He was able to hit his marks, stay on line, and basically, charge his way back up to the front. So, no shortage of adversity there for Nick, but he was thankful for the win and the support of his family and friends, and really happy to pick up that checkered flag and get things back on track this season. The 25G of Gage Gilby, I caught him right as he was climbing out of the car, and he was way out of breath, but had enough breath to tell me that he was very happy with the car, very happy with his day, very thankful for the support of his team, of his family, and couldn't wait to do it again. And then there was some joking on the podium as some champagne was being splashed around, and I think Jarrett told him, because he may or may not be 19 yet, Jarrett told him, hey, you can't have any of this. So he may have snuck in a sip. We won't tell anyone. But a great day for Gilby. Not a great day for Jarrett Butcher or Nicholas Naugle, but they were able to make the most of it despite going through some significant adversity all day for Jarrett Butcher and overcoming an incident for Nicholas Naugle. So great race from all three of these guys. Your contingency award winners were, well, I said it, he was fast all day, and he picked up the Eastlink Fastest Lap Award, the 89 of Danny Chisholm with a 14.447. The R&D Performance Most Laps Led, as I mentioned, was the 08 of Nicholas Naugle with 41 laps led. Hard Charger Award to Jordan Vino, the Swift Springs Hard Charger Award to Jordan Vino, the 11V. The QA1 Free Pass Award, there wasn't one. Sometimes that happens. And the Willwood Racing Future Winner Award to Gage Gilby. Why not? He's, after in his third start, picked up a seventh place, a fifth place, now a third place. Aero Wheels, last car on the lead lap. Like I said, Stephen Lively, the 30. Hard Luck Award, Ryan Van Orscott. I mean, what can you say? Exploding wheel bearing. What are the odds of that happening? So definitely the Hard Luck Award to Ryan Van Orscott. And Rookie of the Race, give him 2 awards. Gage Gilby also picks up the Lucas Oil Rookie of the Race award. Obviously a strong performance by him on that day. So that was the action at the Nova Truck Center's 150. Where does that leave your championship scoring? Well, like I said, Gage Gilby, second place now in the championship with 597 points, behind Jarrett Butcher in the 54, who retains the lead with a second place finish, 618 points for him. So not a big gap there, and certainly not a big gap from Gage Gilby to Austin McDonald in third place with 593 points. Mike Rogers in the 41 and Nicholas Naugle in the 08 round out your top 5 in the championship point standings after 3 of 10 races. So overall, I mean, obviously great to see the 08 of Nicholas Naugle, the Brycon construction team, picking up their first win of the season after some bad luck at Speedway 660 and also in the Kenny Upel 150 at Scotia, just getting picked up in a wreck through no fault of their own. Good to see fortunes turning around for that team. Hopefully they'll continue to do well, in a position to compete now in the championship. Nick is 5th. Great to see the 88 of Russell Smith Jr. picking up some speed after a tough first couple of races. Great to see them do well. And what can you say about Gage Gilby? I mean, the rookie from Enfield now sits second in point after an impressive start to his first ever season on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. That was the action from Scotia Speed World on June 22nd as part of the Nova Truck Center's 150 in support of Special Olympics Nova Scotia. We move on to the next one, Riverside International Speedway for the RJ Poirier 150 as part of the triple header weekend with NASCAR Canada. Let's get to that. Let's turn our mind to Riverside International Speedway, the RJ Poirier 150, and the NASCAR Canada weekend. What better way to do that than to have a conversation with Nova Scotia's own Danny Chisholm? Earlier this year, Danny took part in his first race on the NASCAR Canada Series at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Ontario, and he did well. 8th fastest in practice, 11th in qualifying. Unfortunately, not the result he wanted after mechanical issues caused him to bring it home in 21st, but he turned a lot of heads and impressed on the NASCAR Canada Series. And Danny also now has a handful of starts on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour with Nova Racing. So there's no one better positioned to tell us about the similarities and differences between both cars, how things work, the level of competition. And Danny will be racing on the NASCAR Canada Series at Riverside this weekend. Unfortunately, he won't be racing in the 89 Nova Racing machine because it would be a little much to ask him to do 3 races in the same weekend, but we can't wait to see him on track and can't wait to learn more about the similarities and differences between the Pro Stocks as we know them here and those NASCAR Canada Series rides. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Port Williams, Nova Scotia's own Danny Chisholm. Here we are today with Danny Chisholm from Port Williams, Nova Scotia, getting ready to make his second career start in the NASCAR Canada Series, Riverside International Speedway. How's it going tonight, Danny?
Pretty good. Just came back from the racetrack, so it's always a good day when you're at the track.
I was going to say, I understand you just joined us after hopping out of the car at Riverside. I think it was the Pro Stock you were testing today.
Yeah, we did the changeover from Scotia to Riverside there on Monday and Tuesday, and loaded up this morning and spent the day testing at Riverside and getting the car hopefully dialed in. So Donald has something he can go in with on Saturday.
Awesome. Well, listen, you've been doing this for a little while now. 19 years old, started racing when you were 8. Karting, bandos, legends. I mean, very accomplished in the legends department. Why racing? Do you come from a racing family? Do you come just from an interest of racing at a young age?
Yeah, so I don't actually come from any racing family at all. Nobody in my family I don't think has ever driven anything really at all. But me and my dad always, I grew up, of course, loving cars, watching movies about NASCAR, watching NASCAR, and my dad actually, and I think right around the time that I turned 8 or a little bit before that, started a company, and they did build commercial playgrounds and ended up also powder coating race cars. And I think one of the first cars that they powder coated was actually one for George Koskulik, which is kind of just full circle moment. But and he started doing that stuff. And as the cars started coming in, and he was thinking about, maybe getting me into doing some type of racing, and asked them about go-karts or what the proper path was. And they mentioned Bandoleros, and that was actually where I started, was in Bandoleros at Scotia. And we kind of got thrown to the wolves, and we just went out and bought a car and decided to start racing. So I raced bandos from, I think, 2013 was when I made my first start, all the way till 2020 was when I stopped. So I had a good 7 years of bando racing. And along the way there, we also raced go-karts and stuff too. So, I just always loved motorsports. I loved racing. I loved everything that surrounded it. I played, all kinds of sports growing up. I played hockey, I played soccer, played baseball a little bit when I was younger, played football a little bit when I was younger, but racing always just kind of was something I gravitated towards. It was something that I, over time, through working and racing and stuff, I got good at, and I just enjoyed doing it.
It's kind of funny. I don't know if you know this, but you have no relation to Donald Chisholm, who also races the 89. You have no relation to Joe Chisholm of Racetime Radio, but Joe Chisholm of Racetime Radio got involved with racing by sponsoring cars through his powder coating company.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't know that. Yeah. That is very crazy. I guess the world works in a weird way for some reason. It's all kind of just like, I guess one thing I always kind of said or thought of too was like Donald was 89 and his dad before him was 88, and then George drove the 88, and I grew up driving the 87. So it was all it's just, just a little weird. But anyway, that's just the way it all worked out, I guess.
Yeah, so to all the kids out there who want to get into racing, step one is your dad has to have a powder coating company.
Yeah, I guess so. Makes it a little bit easier.
So now, Danny, you've got a handful of starts with us now on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. You started last year. How did that opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, so through, we had kind of wanted to look at our next step in racing, and through that, we kind of just were looking at, who was really had the most expertise and who would know the best path. And that was when we kind of talked to Donald and approached him about, what he had done for racing in the past. He's kind of, at the time was the most well versed in every different type of series that was involved in Canada, the US, everywhere else. So we just kind of approached him and asked about, what was in his opinion the best route to go. And through that just got talking, and I, had worked in the past with different race teams in the Pro Stock Tour and spent my summers, sometimes living at Rolly and Judy McDonald's house and working at King Racing. So, I kind of been involved in it previously and had some knowledge, and asked if I could do some work at the racetrack and on the race shop and kind of spend last summer in Antigonish. And they said yes, and came here and started working with George and kind of never left. And now I've been doing that for a while and going to school at the same time. But yeah, and then as the season led on, they gave me the opportunity to run that first race last year at Scotia, and we just ran it again last Saturday, and we had a great run on the first outing. We finished third in my first ever start, which was really great. Couldn't have asked for a better kind of first run at it. We haven't really been able to back up that success with finishes, but we've had the speed. We had more speed than we even had that day, and just need to get that bit of luck and find what we need to finish better.
Well, hold on a second now. So, third in your first Pro Stock start. After that, you joined us again for the Summer Clash 250, not the day you were hoping for, 21st. After that, you joined us again for the Modern Pumps and Metals 150 at Riverside, 6th place. And then 16th at the 2023 Tirecraft 200 at Scotia Speed World. So, I can see where you're coming from, but you're gathering it back up. 6th place last weekend. You and I had a chance to chat a little bit in the pits before the race got underway. You definitely had great pace. Practice, heat race, you won your heat race by a mile. But at some point, clearly, the car fell off, or the car got away from you. Maybe the tires were done. 6th place, again, not a bad finish, but considering the amount of speed you were showing all day that day. Is that what happened? Did the tires just wear right off of it?
Yeah, I mean, we've struggled a bit, I guess you could say, with trying to keep pace throughout the event. That's something that both me and Donald have struggled with in the past few races. It happened to him the first race of the year as well. I think if you looked at my race last weekend and his race at the start of or in the first bit of the season there, I think it was beginning of this month, it was almost a carbon copy. The car was quick, got out there, led a bunch of laps, and then the car slowly faded away. We struggled with rear traction, I think, and Donald struggled with it being tight middle and free off, which is kind of just exactly what I felt. But that's what we go testing for, and we're getting it worked on, and we're going to figure out what we need to make it there and be there for the end of the race on lap 150.
Well, and that starts this weekend, and what an exciting weekend we have coming up. Triple header with the NASCAR Canada Series and the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. A bit of a homecoming of sorts for you, given your association with Nova Racing and the fact that the team's based in Antigonish. Excited to be coming back to Riverside?
Yeah, I really am. I really, really enjoyed racing Riverside last year in the Pro Stock, and that was kind of a one-off deal because Donald was away and I got to drive the car. But no, I'm really excited to get a chance to drive it in a NASCAR Canada Series car. We got to run it that first time at CTMP, and that was definitely an eye-opener for me. I'm done a lot of road racing, but still a little bit out of my element, as I never drove a full-size car on a road course. So to get to that was my first shot at it, and race it against guys like Alex Tagliani and Andrew Ranger and Kevin Lacroix and all those big names that are really, really, really talented road racers. Made it all the more of a challenge, but I'm excited to get back to a track where it's kind of, I guess you could say my home turf, or a track I've raced at a few times or practiced at lots. So I'm excited to get on an oval and see what we can do and see if we can make a run at it.
Well, I was going to ask you, so you got a feel for the NASCAR Canada Series ride on a road course. We know those cars are heavier, they have more power. There are really not that many similarities with the Pro Stock, but what are some of the biggest differences as to how these things handle if you were to compare a Pro Stock to a NASCAR Canada Series ride?
Yeah, I would just say just the speed in which everything happens. A Pro Stock car is a lot closer to a legend car in the way it reacts. It reacts quickly. It's kind of nimble. Practicing it today, you get around the track pretty fast, and I think your center corner speed's quite a bit, I think, higher than what we'll see in the NASCAR Canada Series car. They have a lot more travel. They rise up higher and fall down more than a Pro Stock. The Pro Stocks are pretty locked down on the racetrack, and that just makes it just a different challenge, not any more difficult, but just different. And I think it'll be interesting to see and feel once I get in the car how big of a difference it truly is. I don't think it'll be extreme. I think it'll still be, still feel like the same racetrack and still feel like a stock car. So I think I'll be pretty apt to be able to get out there and have pace right away.
But based on what you know, having driven both, how do you expect this big NASCAR Canada ride to handle around Riverside?
I think it'll be pretty similar. Honest to God, there is quite a bit of differences. They're quite a bit heavier, and they do have a little bit more power. The tire compound's a little bit different. But I expect it to be lap times to be quite similar. They'll probably be within tenths of each other. I'm not sure which one will be faster. The NASCAR Canada Series cars back when they ran were a little bit slower than the Pro Stocks lap time wise. But I think now there's been a bunch of different changes since then. I think in 2019 they were on Goodyears, and now we're on a General tire, which is a different tire. There's quite a bit of different changes that have happened. So it'll be interesting to see where they stack up lap time wise. And Saturday will be really good because it's at the same time. So there'll be an exact kind of telltale on what cars are actually quicker around the track.
And between the Pro Stock and the NASCAR Canada Series rides, have you had to make, I know you haven't driven it on an oval yet, but just so far, have you had to make any adjustments or adaptations to your driving style?
I wouldn't say so. The NASCAR Canada Series car and kind of the way that I drive any race car kind of just falls into it. It all kind of works the same, and you just kind of make slight adjustments as you go. I don't really notice exactly. Like a lot of people, when they talk, will come up and ask questions or whatever, and they'll be like, "Where are you? Are you braking here? Are you getting on the gas here?" Or, questions like that. And I don't even have answers for it because I just kind of just do it. I don't pick out spots on the track. I don't have a specific way of driving. It just whatever feels natural at the time, and kind of have to make reactions as you go. I always found in go-karting, I kind of did the same thing. I didn't really have a braking markers, or a lot of drivers did. And I just always felt, because sometimes you don't get off the corner as well in the previous corner or something like that, right? You could have gotten to the gas later, so then you can drive it in the corner harder. So having a direct braking point or driving a car in a specific manner, I feel like just limits your ability to get speed from the race car.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see you on Saturday in one of those rides. How did that opportunity come about exactly?
Yeah, so it's been a long time in the making, actually. It's been multiple years. I think I originally talked to David White and White Motorsports guys 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. We were talking to a few different NASCAR teams just before we started doing some pro stock races. That was always the path that we, kind of hoped to take. We didn't really know where we were going to go with it, but we hoped that the NASCAR ride would be something that we'd be able to get into. And it all comes down to, getting partners and people that are going to help you on the race car. And that's how racing works these days. It's more about being able to being able to be a marketable person and have people to fund your racing rather than just, your performance on the track.
So do you see this entry into the NASCAR Canada Series as a stepping stone for you onto other series?
Yeah, I mean, it's always the hope. There's lots of different series that I'd love to race in the future. The NASCAR Canada Series right now is the goalpost, and that's kind of the focus. The goal would be to, of course, try and put a package together and race it more than just the few races that we plan on running this season. That all comes down to, gathering sponsorship and signing deals with race teams to go and do that. So that's our next step, and we've made it this far, and haven't really had too many big struggles. So I'm really hoping that we can put something together and continue doing this into the future.
Now, let's talk about the track for a second. We see NASCAR Canada coming back for a doubleheader. They haven't, this is the first time back since in let's call it the post-COVID era. We see NASCAR Canada coming to Riverside. We see big NASCAR stars coming to the IWK 250 every year. The grandstands are packed. What makes Riverside International Speedway so special, you think?
It truly is just a premier facility. I think, I mean, I've traveled all over North America racing short tracks and stuff like that, and all across Canada as well. And I can't really say that there's many facilities that have even come close to Riverside. It's truly top notch, and there isn't a stone unturned before that event. So it's a great fan experience, and the seating is honestly perfect. You can see the whole racetrack. It's always a great experience when you're there watching racing. And growing up as a kid and going to different racetracks and stuff, Riverside was always the track that I always dreamed of racing at, just because when you start off racing bandos and stuff, that you don't get the chance to race at Riverside. So it kind of became, that premier track that you knew you had to make it up and get into higher levels to even get to compete at. So it just always was kind of a crown jewel racetrack. And I think that's why, with the limited events that they host, it just makes it that much more special when you do get to race at a track that's so well maintained.
Well, it is a special place. The grandstands are packed. Now, let's see if you've thought about this. Our qualifying races on the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour are pack heat races. But NASCAR Canada, it's single car qualifying, right? You're going to get the track to yourself for 2 laps. The place is going to go insane when they go next up from Port Williams, Nova Scotia, the number 19 of Danny Chisholm. Have you thought about this? Like, that's going to give you goosebumps.
Well, hopefully it's cheers and not booze, but you never know. We'll see. No, I'm excited. I think it'll be fun. I've done a little bit of, single car qualifying in the past. So I do have a tiny bit of experience, nothing compared to any of these guys. They do it on a, pretty much weekly basis. So that'll be an uphill battle for me, but I do think I can run quick times. I've never really thought of myself as being a, just raw speed type of guy. But it seems like with the pro stock car, that's more the way that I've kind of transitioned to. We've been really quick and been able to lay down quick times, but just struggled for the race. So I'm hoping, this time I'm going to take all that into account and try to do my best to not only lay down a good qualifying run, but also keep the car for the whole race and make sure that we're in contention for the win come the end. Because learning from CTMP, a lot of these NASCAR Canada Series races are just as much about survival and just staying out of trouble and being there for the end than it is, just out there leading laps, because they often have issues, or there's cars that fall out of the race, and you can be, gifted a third place run, or, have a restart at the end of the race where you get to start near the front and have a chance to win it. So it's about being there at the end. And that was the part that we kind of missed at Canadian Tire. We had troubles early. And I think we would have been well inside the top 10 if we didn't have those issues. That's where cars we were racing around ended up finishing. So that's my goal this time around.
Well, I agree, because you definitely showed some speed at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I mean, I think you were 8th in practice and 11th in qualifying. So, definitely towards the top half of the field. Now, having said that, you mentioned a top 10 would be great. Is that the goal that you've set for yourself this weekend in each of these two races?
I mean, the goal when you go to the racetrack is always to win. There's nothing else other than that. I'm not the type of guy to go to the racetrack if I didn't think I could win. So, yeah, the goalpost is winning the race. We're gonna take whatever we can get, but if the car is capable, I think I can. I think my goal is to be the person who's capable to make that happen. So I think there's there's no reason to doubt yourself, I guess you could say.
Well, I like that attitude. I think that's going to serve you well. Now, what does the rest of your summer look like in terms of racing? You're running these two NASCAR Canada Series races this weekend. Not the Pro Stock Tour race. Donald's going to take the wheel of the 89 car for that one because it'd be a bit much to ask to do 3 races in one weekend. I mean, that'd be 450 laps of racing in 2 days. But apart from that, what does the rest of your summer look like? What's on the race schedule?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we don't have any plans other than this weekend. We kind of take things as we go. I truly didn't think at the start of the season that we were even going to race at Riverside in the Nascar Canada Series. So I'm fortunate enough to even be doing this. So I'm just excited to take this weekend all in, and then we'll see what we can do from there. I there's no set in stone plans right now on the Pro Stock side, on the NASCAR side, on legend cars, nothing. So we'll see. I always want to be in a race car. And I get to do quite a bit of testing here with Nova Racing and with George, so that keeps me kind of freshened up and ready to go. But I do, of course, want to get in the car and run some more races. So hopefully hopefully you'll see me more on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour as well.
Well, I hope so too. We love having you from a pure fan perspective. You're exciting to watch from the stands. Lots of raw speed, as you said. Before I let you go, Danny, any partners or sponsors you want to take the opportunity to thank?
Yeah, so of course, first of all, I got to thank George Koskulik, Donald Chisholm, Nova, everyone at Nova Racing. They give me the opportunity to go racing on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour, all the crew. They are all amazing people, and getting to meet them in the last 2 years has been a huge part of my success in my racing. So I truly can't thank them enough. For the NASCAR Canada Series side, I'm excited to be working with White Motorsports, kind of in collaboration with the guys here at Nova. So I'm excited to make that happen. And we got some good marketing partners with Janny King and Shoreline Trading Post, Isha Powder Coating, Cleveland's Carpet One, Riverside International. So I'm excited to get out there and hopefully serve all those people right and show them why they chose me.
Well, Danny, I can't wait to see you on the track on Saturday. Hopefully on Sunday too. The weather forecast doesn't look great right now for Sunday, but can't wait to see you go around Riverside in one of them NASCAR Canada Series rides on Saturday. We'll see you there. Good luck, my friend, and thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much.
A big thank you to Danny Chisholm for coming on the show today and helping us understand the similarities and differences between the Maritime Pro Stock Tour, Pro Late models, and the NASCAR Canada Series rides. Now, to help us continue to bridge the gap and to learn a little bit more about NASCAR Canada, as we're on the same bill as them this weekend at Riverside International Speedway, is Joe Chisholm Jr. Joe is currently the spotter for the number 27 team of Andrew Ranger. They have the points lead right now in the NASCAR Canada Series. And of course, we'll talk all things Racetime Radio, spotting, and what he enjoys the most about coming out to Riverside and seeing our pro stocks on the track. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Joe Chisholm Jr. Well, today we're lucky to have Joe Chisholm Jr. with us on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour Hot Pass podcast. I was thinking about how to introduce him. Racetime Radio, spotter for the 27 of Andrew Ranger in the NASCAR Canada Series, Director of Sales and Marketing for Two Speed Motorsports. Does that cover it, Joe?
The racing guy.
The racing
basically.
Guy.
That's how I'm known to all the non-racing people around Owen Sound, Ontario. So it's all things motorsports all the time. So it got in my blood at a young age and never left.
Well, listen, thank you for being on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour Hot Pass podcast today, Joe, and making some time for us today. We are so thrilled to be joined on the same bill again with the NASCAR Canada Series at Riverside International Speedway, an iconic track for us down here in the Maritimes. And dare I say it, in probably all of the eastern seaboard of North America, our little Bristol. So happy to have you guys back. I know you love the Maritimes because Eastbound was very good to you guys last weekend.
It was extremely good to us, and the Maritimes have always had a soft spot in my heart. On the race time radio side, I've been involved or been around the all things East Coast for it's got to be going back 13 years, 14 years now. So even though I'm from Ontario, I definitely got a soft spot for all things Atlantic Canada when it comes time for racing. But man, to put a cherry on top this past weekend, after two incredibly hard seasons with Ranger, we're on a roll right now and picked up a win at Chaudier over in Quebec and then back to back at Eastbound Speedway over in Newfoundland. We couldn't ask for things to be going better right now.
Man, you said it. Andrew's on a roll, and so's the whole team. You guys back-to-back wins. Andrew was already the winningest driver, I think, in NASCAR Canada history. He's just padding the stats now.
He's definitely padding the stats, and he's not done. He's not done by a long shot. He's got a lot of racing left in him, and obviously got into the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series back in the day at a very young age, and he's currently sitting, I believe, at 34 wins. He's got a nice little gap there back to second place all time, and it's really cool to see the excitement that Rangers got right now. I've been spotting for him now for I guess it's got to be 7 years, and we've won a championship together. I've never seen him as focused, as dedicated, as energized as what he is, this season. And, partnering with Kevin Lacroix and Lacroix Tuning and Matthew Kingsbury and just the whole thing coming together with JC Paye and the Paye Chevrolet team has just been huge. And Ranger is he's hitting on all cylinders. The team's behind him 150%, and I think this season there's everybody's definitely going to be drawing a target on our back because I think there's a lot more to come out of the 27 camp.
Well, that's great to hear, Joe, and what a great weekend of racing we have in store for race fans down here. A triple header, really, with the two races on the NASCAR Canada Series side and our own RJ Poirier 150 on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. Looking forward to seeing our Pro Stocks in action on Saturday?
I am. It's been a long time since I've seen a Pro Stock Tour race in person. I think the last Pro Stock Tour race that I seen would have been the Cat 250, and that would have been back in 2016. It would have been a long time ago. So really excited to see the Pro Stock Tour guys get after it. I know this is a crazy deal to say, but I've never seen a Pro Stock Tour race on Riverside Speedway before. I've been to Scotia Speed World to watch them a number of times, and I've never got the opportunity to see a Pro Stock Tour race at Riverside. So really excited for that. Really cool to see a doubleheader between NASCAR Canada and the Pro Stock Tour. Usually if there are a second or third division that partner up with the NASCAR Canadian or the NASCAR Canada Series, it's usually a smaller group. It's usually legend cars or four cylinders or when we race out in Edmonton, they have like the junior cars, and when we race at places like Delaware Speedway, they might race the night before, but then usually stand alone with the NASCAR Canada Series. And this one here, man, you can't ask for a better ticket between the Pro Stock Tour and the NASCAR Canada Series, you're going to see a lot of racing. You're going to see a lot of a lot of iron on the racetrack and a lot of big names.
Well, our guys are interested to seeing what the effect of having the NASCAR Canada Series is going to be on the track. How much rubber you guys are going to lay down. How is it going to affect the track as it progresses throughout the day? So that'll be a big change for our guys, and they're looking forward to it for sure.
And so are we. I mean, the NASCAR Canada Series, typically, we race on a track with next to no rubber to start out with, or just our rubber from practice, or very minimal rubber from an under division. But for there to be two, long races like there's going to be, our rubber is both different, right? So we run on a General tire, they run on a Hoosier tire. So it's going to be very unique, and it's going to provide something that we don't normally see, on a week-to-week basis with the series. So just as much as they're excited to see what the track does, I know it's already been in conversation with our team, and kind of sculpting the setup to forecast what's going to happen. But you can never tell because two rubbers never react the same way.
And it's going to be a special weekend, to see how the track evolves with two major series. And there's another evolution that's going to take place, and that's going to be the evolution of one young Danny Chisholm. Danny is now, I would say, one of our regulars on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. He's got 5 starts in our series now under his belt. In his very first start last year, he finished on the podium at Scotia Speed World. And he's ran 4 more starts since then. Just this past weekend, I had the opportunity to speak with him. He was with us at Scotia Speed World. Had great speed all day, but the car fell off. I think he literally drove the wheels right off of it and came home in 6th place, so still not a bad result. Now tell me, did you get a chance to see Danny in action at Canadian Motorsports Park in his first start on the NASCAR Canada Series earlier in May?
Yeah, I did. Got a chance to see, some of him. We ran, with the 19 car a little bit in the mid portion of the race. I know that it was his first start, and he definitely did a great job. He turned a lot of heads, that's for sure. To go out there and to put the car in the top 10 in practice, and to showcase, really a newcomer to the series, with all the heavy hitters that were out there, and to put it in the top 10, it was definitely a big feather in his cap. As well in the race, it's a tough race. Both the Victoria Day weekend and the Labor Day weekend at CTMP is extremely hard racing. He had to battle through, the pit stops and everything else. And, definitely everybody knew he was there, and that's a good thing. And hopefully we get a chance to see more of him. He's definitely a young cat, and young guys tend to want to make noise, and I really hope that he gets out there and has a good result over at Riverside.
Well, I'll tell you, the place, and I'm going to talk to him about this tomorrow, but so in our series, qualifying is heat races, by packs of probably 8 to 10 cars. You guys do single car qualifying 2 laps at a time. I mean, the place is going to blow up when it's his turn to go on Saturday. I can tell you that.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's cool because really over the past couple of years, we've seen this influx of local drivers jumping in. And I mean, it's always been a part, even back to the CASCAR days, but more so back then because there used to be, CASCAR West and CASCAR East and then the CASCAR Super Series. So there was a lot of local guys that would jump in when the Super Series would come to town. Now, we've seen that kind of dwindle off a little bit, but, over the past few years, we've seen an influx, and we've seen it just this past weekend at Eastbound with Josh Collins, Brandon McFarland, and then as well Sarah Thorne. So 3, Newfoundlanders got a chance to strap in and go racing. And with Danny there, he's gonna jump in there and have a really good piece under him, and I think that between him and the other Newfoundland guys that are coming over, there's quite a bit of Atlantic Canada going to be taking place at Riverside. So it should be pretty interesting, and definitely the fan bases will embrace them, and that is something that's really cool.
And I'm going to talk to him about this tomorrow, but I want your view on this as well. Coming from a pro late model to one of these NASCAR Canada Series rides, what are some of the big similarities and differences that we're talking about here?
There's not much in the similarity category.
Okay.
They're very different race cars. A pro late model, you need to attack from the drop of the green flag, and really, saving tires means something considerably different than saving tires in a Pinty's car, or now a NASCAR Canada car. $5 in the jar, I guess I should say. But the NASCAR Canada car is a very heavy race car. They're very basic when it comes time for suspension. I know the crew chiefs that are out there would slap me for saying that, but they put so much effort into them. But they're very basic in just the way that they're set up, and they've held the technology for so long that really you're driving something that's not very nimble, and you're asking a lot out of the tire with a lot of horsepower, and it's very difficult to make speed and to save. It's a little bit easier to save with a pro late model or with a super late model, if you will. But as well, you've got completely different sight lines. You've got different roll in the car. You've got considerably different suspension in the rear. So it's unique to our series. There's no other series that are like NASCAR Canada. You can't compare that car to even an ARCA car or to a NASCAR Mexico car. The NASCAR Canada car is very unique. So jumping out of a pro late and jumping into a NASCAR Pinty's or NASCAR Canada car is considerably different, and it takes a completely different set of skills. But in saying that, racecraft is racecraft. So if you've got racecraft down, you can assimilate and at least bring the basics to the table and integrate that into creating a good run. What kind of chassis are we talking about? Well, the chassis of a NASCAR Canada car is it is a big spring chassis, and it has got a 3-link in the rear, or a Watts link on road courses. It is it's just a lot heavier. There's a lot of tubing up high. It's a perimeter style car, not a perimeter late model, but a perimeter style car, with very generic pickup points. And then you've got a pro late model or a super late, which is, offset chassis, and you've got, engine setback and everything else. So, you got to think a NASCAR Canada car is everything is up high, and you're trying to control it with a very basic shock package. And a pro late model or a super late model, everything is down low, and you're trying to control it with a very aggressive shock package. So, and more brakes and a lighter overall weight. So, it creates great racing. That's what fans love to see. You've got a tremendous amount of horsepower that you're trying to land for a long period of time, and it creates comers and goers like no other series does in North America, I would say, and creates great racing. What kind of power are we talking about? Just under 600 horse for the most part, roughly, depending. A spec engine is a spec engine across the board, so everybody's making right around that 600 mark. Okay. Well, that gives us an idea of the basic sort of differences between the two series. And you're going to have a busy weekend spotting for Andrew. These little 3rd mile ovals on high banks. It's a lot of traffic when you've got a big field of cars. Like I said, Atlantic Canada has been good to you so far with the win for the 2017 at Eastbound last weekend.
Tell me, how did the opportunity come up for you to be spotting for Andrew Ranger?
So I came back from the U.S. in 2017, and when I came back, I was looking for something to do in racing, and of course I cut my teeth in Ontario with J.R. Fitzpatrick and those guys. So it was natural to look at the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series, NASCAR Pinty Series at the time, and look for a way that I could get involved. And I reached out to DJ Kennington. And of course, Ranger was driving for DJ at the time. Originally, I was supposed to spot for DJ, and Ranger needed a spotter as well. So it was when I showed up at CTMP for race number one. I was thinking that I was spotting for DJ, and he goes, I'm going to use Dennis Thompson at the time, and or sorry, no, he was Steven Simmons. He's going to use Steven Simmons, and he's like, I'm going to put you with Ranger. And I said, cool, let's do it. So, it was, I went to the track thinking that I was going to be part of the Castrol team, and I left there part of the Mopar Pennzoil team, and it was like that ever since. So
Wow.
Ranger and I have just stuck together through the DJK portion when we were with DJ, then as well with Rick Ware, affiliated with DJ, then crossed over to the White Motorsports, and now to Lacroix Tuning. So it's been a good relationship. Ranger and I work really good together, and it takes that. There's a lot of chemistry. Some drivers and spotters don't work good together, and some work really good together. So him and I just click, and he understands my lingo, and I understand his. So it's really good.
I want to touch on that a little bit. Not only, what makes a good spotter for one thing, but also what makes a good relationship between a spotter and a driver.
Thick skin. You got to be able to get yelled at. All jokes aside, it's a good spotter is only as good as the information that the driver wants to hear, right? So really, it takes you got to have adaptability, and you got to be able to give the driver what they want to hear and what they need to hear. So it's there's a lot of conversations that happen that you got to put your ego aside, and you got to give a different set of or a different bar of information, maybe the driver to hear, and then you also have to have an open dialogue and say, look, you need to know this because it will help you progress, or it will help you make holes in the future, or what have you, right? So there's got to be an open dialogue, and there also has to be a lot of word association, right? Because 9 times out of 10, when a good spotter is working with a good driver, they're moving before the whole word is said. So there's a lot of chemistry that it takes to make that happen, and when it starts to work, it's cool, and you see long-standing relationships across the board. Usually, once you find that guy that clicks, I know I work with a guy, Josh Stoddy, in the APC series. Him and I work really good together as well, and it's the same idea. It's he gets me, I get him, and we both respect what job we have to do, and we both have thick skin. I'll pour the coals to him, and he'll pour the coals back to me. So we're in it together, and fighting to get to that checkered flag.
And what kind of driver is Andrew? Is he the type of driver that wants information fed to him all the time, or does he want to be left alone? Or
it really depends on the situation. He does want a lot of information. Andrew definitely can absorb a lot of information, but as well he knows what he needs to do. So you're never telling them how to drive the car. That's a very important part of being a spotter. You're not telling them how to drive. You're just giving them options and giving them opportunities to make moves. So Ranger likes to have as much information as humanly possible that he can then implement on the racetrack. So that's the style that Ranger looks for. Same with Josh Stoddy. A guy like DJ Kennington, he wants as little information as humanly possible. Got a chance to, during COVID when Ranger didn't have a seat, worked with DJ, and that was a guy that is older school and likes very minimal information.
Okay. And as a spotter, what have you learned from a guy like Andrew that has so much experience and has enjoyed so much success?
Oh, lots. The guy's been around the world. He's run, Indy cars in Surfers Paradise in Australia. He's run, sports cars in Europe. He's run and won in the ARCA series and run up front in the NASCAR Nationwide series. And, he's just been there, done that. So I've learned a lot from what he wants out of a car. And what to watch for during practice, during the race, just what visual cues I can provide to him that will help make the race car go faster. So, and that's it's pretty interesting. He attacks the corner so much differently than anybody that I've ever spotted for. He's very aggressive, but he doesn't stove it in there and arc off guys. He makes holes or waits for holes to happen and then opens the door and drives through.
Well, that's great information. I mean, that's unique insight into some of these drivers that only people like yourself would have. So it's great to have this on the podcast and to be able to share that with our listeners today. So that's what you're doing now, spotting for Andrew Ranger for a number of years. But let's back it up a bit. Quite a few years. You're with the NASCAR Canada Series now, but where did it all start for you? I mean, we all get to racing and a passion for racing in different ways. I mean, I assume your dad has something to do with that, but
100%.
Was that it? Was just growing up around with him traveling from racetrack to racetrack, and you just kind of fell in the bath?
So my dad sponsored cars starting out in 1988 and 89 with his powder coat company. So that was his kind of involvement and getting involved in racing. And I used to go to his powder painting shop and look at the race cars and think it was the coolest thing ever, just being a little kid. And in 1994, he ended up purchasing the racetrack in Sauble Beach, Ontario. So he owned the racetrack, Sauble Speedway, for just over 15 years. Through that, I started junior late model racing, which is like, basically you guys have Bandoleros out here. Junior late models are kind of like a mini cup car, considerably different than a Bando, but still same size. So I started driving at I guess I would have been 9 years old. So I drove those for 10 years, 11 years. Then I did a little bit, into the bigger cars. Got a chance to drive a few cars, not race them, but to drive them, and stepped away from the driving in 2006. So I stepped away from driving in 2006, and that's when I started helping a buddy of mine, Andrew Grizel. He had a street stock. And started just basically going to the racetrack and having fun as a crew guy. And that was before spotters and all that stuff. It was just a street stock, and it was a lot of fun. And how I started spotting itself was we progressed through the ranks together. Andrew did, and we went to a racetrack called Delaware Speedway one night with his dad's late model, and it was mandatory to have a radio. And he's never had a spotter, and there wasn't a spotter on the team, so I got tabbed.
You're like, yeah,
And,
I'll do it. I'll do it.
yeah, I'll do it. And I fell in love with it. It gave me the same excitement that I had driving a race car. Obviously you're not driving, but to be clear, you get the same excitement because everything's happening so fast. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And that's what got me started. And then I just looked for opportunities beyond that. Right. So every chance that I wanted to wear a radio. And, I think that season we raced probably 4 times in that late model. And we were slow. We were at the back. We were just learning everything, right? We didn't know what we didn't know, and we just were having fun doing it. And as we progressively got more serious, he purchased a better car, and we got better and started running, in that top 10, and then picked it up further and started running across the province, and and just kind of progressed from there. And then as you go, opportunities open up, right? So I got an opportunity to spot for a guy, Joey McComb, in the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series. And he was just starting out in that deal. And once I got my feet wet in like using race control and having, live pit stops back then, it was really addicting, and had a few opportunities here and there with guys like LP Dumoulin to fill in for a guy. I spotted for Scott Steckley, and for about a half a season, I was kind of a fill-in guy for Steckley because he had 3 teams. So I spotted for Jim White with the 24 car, and then LP was driving for him as well. And then Scott Steckley did a few late model appearances, so I spotted for him. Then at the end of the year, he brought Max Pappas in to run at Kawartha. And got a chance to spot for him, and that's what kind of opened some doors from there. And Max and I worked really good together, and kind of blossomed into a bunch of different opportunities down the line. So, long story short, it started out late model racing at Delaware Speedway, and kind of built from there.
Wow, I did not expect that we would be talking about IndyCar great Max Pappas on the podcast today, but there we go.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, listen, that's great to hear. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least touch on Racetime Radio.
Absolutely.
For me, it was really a catalyst in as I came up to love racing. Very similar story. My dad introduced me to the sport in the mid '90s, and then one night, scanning radio stations, we come across this thing on AM 560, and some guy starts talking about racing, and I was like, "What? I had no idea this even existed. There's a radio show that's about racing." And I was hooked ever since. Whenever we went for drives, I requested that it be on Monday night, I think it was back then. And we would tune in for, a half hour, an hour, however long we could, go grab an ice cream and go back home and keep talking racing. So that, the show was really instrumental in my own upbringing and love of racing. So, your father, of course, I love the mission of Racetime Radio and what your father put together there to just really give more coverage to a sport that just doesn't get enough respect, doesn't get enough coverage. So I just want to say I love the mission of Racetime Radio. I think it does it well, and we wouldn't be where we are today, I think, without it.
Absolutely, and I thank you for that. It's cool that to watch the blood, sweat, and tears that he puts into that radio program is so cool. It's pure passion. I don't think you can find a guy that loves racing, more than him. He loves the sport, right? He loves the entire deal, and he wants everybody to pull on the rope in the same direction, and he preaches that, and he's opinionated, and that's what 90% of the people love about it, and 10% of the people hate it, because he is opinionated, and that 10% are the same people that come back for more and end up loving it. So the race time radio for me, and working with my dad on it. We have fun every single time that there's a show. We hardly ever agree, on the basic bullet point. But then by the end of it, we can come up with a solution for everything that we disagree on. So it's cool. We try to, it's really difficult to not just be fluffy, right? And you can just talk about racing and talk about only the good stuff, or you can talk about racing and talk about only the bad stuff. We try to cover the bad stuff and say, hey, how can we do this better? And then we try to cover the good stuff as much as possible as well, right? So it's it's about keeping it interesting and being as real as possible, and his partners see that, and I've since moved away from the studio, so I'm not on the show week in and week out anymore. But still try to get on as much as possible and go from there. So race time radio is, it's a huge part of my life, and I love watching Dad, keep on killing it out there. And Rev TV is a perfect place for it, and it has grown into something that is truly national, and it's a lot of fun to see grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, a big inspiration behind what I'm doing right now. It's easy to cover NASCAR Cup Series or Formula One or IndyCar because there's so much out there with those big series. But the little series, the little guys, where you're just grinding it out every weekend. You have a full-time job, but you go racing on weekends and you spend a lot of money and you're really good at what you do, but nobody's getting rich, nobody's getting famous, but it's all about the passion for the sport of racing. And Racetime Radio was one of the first ones to give the little guys their due. I mean, your dad just had Nicholas Naugle on his show on Sunday after he won here at Scotia Speed World. And a lot of our guys are regulars on Racetime Radio. I know they really have a debt of gratitude to yourself, your dad, and Racetime Radio as a whole. And I think, like I said, it's a big reason why I've decided to start doing this, and just have been really inspired by what you guys have done.
Well, and it's awesome that you're doing the Pro Stock Tour has got so many storylines, and really all of Maritimes, all of racing has got so many storylines that are behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about. The long travel, the guy who won his first race, or the guy who got teched out after a good run. There's always storylines, and it's cool to shine even a brighter spotlight on it, and the more people that are talking about everything to do with motorsports, the louder our voice is, and the bigger and better we can make the sport together.
And just in case you weren't busy enough spotting for Andrew Ranger and being involved with Racetime Radio, you've also are behind Two Speed Motorsport.
Yes.
So fabrication, design of race parts. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So my day job is working as the director of sales and marketing for Two Speed. We make everything from like jack stands to camber shims to Legends squaring devices. We've got a really cool hub and front bar measurement system for Legends cars. We've got, we're a huge supplier of painted aluminum. We've got white and black right now, but we're getting into the different colors in the future. Basically, Two Speed, is known as a manufacturer, designer of parts and pieces that is designed to save the racers money, and then as well provide a high quality product made right here in Canada. One of our big lines, that we're really proud of is Raptor air filters, which is we've designed, developed, and created a high flow, extremely high flow, really sealable air filter for the late model style cars. Right now, we offer 3 different types: 3-inch, 3.5-inch, and 4-inch by 14-inch diameter. And we've got into a bunch of different parts and pieces that are designed to make your life easier with a race car. So we started out with 1 set of jack stands and 1 gear pot storage device that was in 2023, January 1st. And now we are up to just shy of 200 SKUs. And it's all products that are owned and made by us. So
Wow.
It's pretty cool. As well, we've got a race shop facility in Hanover, Ontario. Now, this doesn't pertain to your listeners as much, but we've got a machine shop, and as well, we employ a few mechanics and actually work on customer race cars and hot rods and modifieds and TQ midgets and you name it on the fabrication side for repairs, for maintenance and that sort of thing. So it's the company is growing very rapidly and very quickly, and that's one of the things that I'm doing out here in the Maritimes this week. Is I've got a truck and trailer, and I've got a bunch of products that I'm going around to a bunch of race teams and showing off what we're doing. So it's race parts and pieces are basically bought when you touch them and you feel them and you see the quality, and that's what we're doing out here this week. So just driving around and being Johnny on the spot and showing what we got.
Man, if I had known this, I would have charged you for this promo.
Well, that's why I snuck it in there.
Well, listen, I wanted to make sure you did, because no joke, I'm sure you'll find a few customers on our tour this weekend.
Absolutely.
Listen, Joe, I know you're sitting in the rain in New Glasgow right now, and we can't wait until Saturday and Sunday this weekend. RJ Poirier 150 on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour, along with a doubleheader with NASCAR Canada. Absolutely cannot wait for all of this. Thanks for your time today, Joe. If people want to follow you on social media, they want to go to the Two Speed Motorsport website, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, for sure. Joe Chisholm Jr. on everything, on basically everything, on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And then as well at Two Speed Motorsports on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So check us out. You can check out twospeedmotorsports.com, and we've got our full line online. So definitely look us up. Reach out to us. You can shoot me an email anytime, Joe at twospeedmotorsports.com, and we can go from there.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Joe. Can't wait to see you in person on Saturday at Riverside International Speedway. Thanks for your time.
Hey, great job. Thanks for having me on, and I can't wait for the weekend.
Well, as Porky Pig of the Looney Tunes would say, that's all, folks. Thank you for tuning in to episode 9 of the Maritime Pro Stock Tour's Hot Pass podcast. I had a lot of fun making it. Thank you, Danny Chisholm, for coming on. Thank you, Joe Chisholm Jr. for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the recap of last weekend's race, and I hope you enjoyed the preview of this weekend's race. That's right, RJ Poirier 150 this weekend, Riverside International Speedway with NASCAR Canada. Does it get any better than this? I don't think it does. Now, in the meantime, send us your questions, send us your comments. podcast at maritimeprostocktour.com. We will see you Saturday, June 29 at Riverside. Until then, keep your belts tight and your hands on the wheel.